welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
The Basque Country is about the sea, but it's also very much about the land. Small mountain villages, medieval hilltop towns, and the world-renowned wine region of Rioja Alavesa. Now we're going to find out if I really know how to pronounce that correctly. But thank you all for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station Travel Show with Nancy and Lisa. We're the crazy mother-daughter travel team and publishers of Big Blend Magazines. You can check it all out at bigblendmagazines.com. But today we're really excited to have travel, food, and wine writer Hilarie Larson back on the show. She's going to talk about part 2 of her adventures in the Basque Country of Spain. You can see both articles up on Blend Radio and TV.com. You just see her also in our expert department. You'll see her past interviews and articles as well. And you can keep up with Hilarie's adventures. She likes to go wine hopping, music hopping around the world. Go to northwindswineconsulting.com. So welcome back, Wine Queen. How are you?
Thank you. I'm just fine. I'm getting ready to go on another adventure. So I'm happy to talk about the past one so I can start writing about the next one.
Oh,
Cool.
That's very cool. Now, did I
Yeah.
pronounce Rioja Alavesa correctly, or is there a
You
better?
certainly did. I am extremely impressed.
Oh, wow. I did
Yes.
one pronunciation correctly. Oh, you know, that's amazing. I get 10 points. That means I get a glass of wine. So
Yeah,
this
you can
is,
have a glass of Rioja from Rioja Alavesa now.
it sounds really good. So this is an area that actually has like this whole wine route in this region of the Basque Country.
Oh, and a beautiful one. They're really organized. Actually, the people who the organization that put together the Rioja Alavesa wine route has won awards from the organization that sort of accredits the wine routes. To be called an accredited wine route in Spain, you have to have a really good relationship with the wine growers and the wine producers, plus the other elements like the restaurants and the villages and all the different components that make up that wonderful wine tourism experience. So they do a fantastic job. And, you know, when you visit and you see what they have to work with, you can understand it must be pretty easy.
Well, this sounds...
It's just gorgeous there, and everything's close together, and wine is like the blood that runs through the area and through everybody's veins. You know, pretty well everybody's involved in the wine industry in some way, shape, or form, or a business that is affiliated with wine. So it's very, very wine centric.
And
Cool.
you were there because you were part of the International Wine Tourism Conference as well. And
That's
everyone,
right.
we call Hilarie the wine queen because she is a sommelier, but you're like, you have all these different levels of sommelier, right? So what's
Well,
you're the wine queen level, right?
Well, when it comes to wine and being a sommelier, I just have my first level with the Court of Master Sommelier. But I also have my CSW, which is a Certified Specialist of Wine. And that I like because it's really all encompassing, and you learn about wines from all over the world and how wines are made and how to detect flaws in wine and all those little geeky things. And then I also have my French wine scholar certification, and that's nice too.
Oh, that's interesting because I know also, you know, your background in life is also over in Canada. We've got the French influence there. You love going to France, as we've talked about over shows. Chateauneuf du We're still learning. Every time Hilarie comes on a show, we have a language lesson.
We have to say it.
But what's interesting?
Chateauneuf.
Yeah, that's it. And when we were reading your article in this second part of your Basque series, you talk about how France, the history of France, influenced the history of wine in the Basque Country of Spain, and that was really interesting to me. Is the common ties not only obviously the French brought some winemaking skills over, but they have limestone over there, right? So isn't that part of that whole
They
wine
do.
so good.
And they have it's the soil, and it's also the physical geographical proximity
Mm.
that sort of brought the French during the late part of the 19th century, when the Bordeaux region was suffering from that blight called phylloxera, which pretty well wiped out a huge portion of the vineyards of Western Europe. But yeah, they came down there partially too because you have the Bordeaux area, and then right below or south of Bordeaux you have the southwest region of France, and part of that, or most of that, is also Basque, because as I mentioned in my part one of my article, the Basque region doesn't really recognize the border. It transverses the border between Spain and France and goes in that sort of C shape around the Bay of Biscay. So there were ties there. And when you think about it, what we think now of these, national borders of France and Spain, as an example, in this case, they weren't always there. I mean, it used to be that you were probably more worried about the Castilians and all these different kingdoms, and that was more important as far as culture went than what we now think of as France and Spain.
Interesting. And one of the places you were talking about in your article is like this was actually like a Walden City.
Oh, LaGuardia, yes, and it is still a walled city. In LaGuardia, the walls are all intact with the original gates, and there's nothing more magical in my strange perspective than staying at a hotel that is inside of a walled medieval city and walking around at night. There's no cars, there's hardly anybody around, or getting up early in the morning and going for a walk, and it's quiet and peaceful, and you can kind of, transpose your mind and your ideas into what it must have been like centuries ago. Because a lot of them, very little has changed.
Wow.
This is amazing to me.
So somebody has to go through the wall to get into the city?
Yes. They have gates. So when you go to visit LaGuardia, for example, they have a couple of parking lots outside the city wall. And that's where you leave your vehicle. And then you walk through one of the gates and walk in. And that's
wow.
it. Yeah.
No way.
And nobody tells you can't come in?
No, we did meet one of the, I believe, 2 policemen that they have in LaGuardia. So, they do have a law presence, but they don't really need it very much. And it's wonderful. You see kids playing with their soccer balls in the street. And actually, you see that a lot, I noticed, all the time I was in the Basque Country of Spain and in other parts of Spain and France as well, is they let their kids, a couple will be sitting having a drink with their friends at a little cafe, and the kids will be playing on the sidewalk or in the park, and the parents aren't always hovering over them every second. They let kids play and be kids, and somehow everything seems to work out okay.
See, that's like South Africa.
But that's how it used to be.
Yeah,
until this country got so developed and so big.
It's interesting to me how things have changed, over the years. But when you go back to these countries that are kind of older, let's put it that way, it seems like family is king, and families can sit and have wine and food, and the kids can play there, and everyone just kind of gets along in a way. And there's a better education with that. I did want to touch on the wine, because you talk about the Rioja wine. That Tempranillo is a big thing, and I know Nancy loves her Tempranillo, so she needs to go.
I thought of Nancy.
You said that was the king. I was like, family is the king, but you say in your article that that this 90% of the vineyards are doing red wine, and Tempranillo is the main deal.
Most definitely, most definitely. You'll see Tempranillo everywhere, but they also grow other varieties, Garnacha, which we call Grenache in French, Mazuelo, which we refer to as Carignan, and then another red variety called Graciano. And they also have wonderful white wines. I'm a big fan of Viura, which in the southern part of Spain they call Macabeo, and it's one of the 3 varieties they use to make cava. So, but Viura is a wonderful wine, especially if you want a white when you're in a pinchos bar. It's just nice and really sort of light peachy florals and a little bit of citrus and a little bit of body, but still extremely refreshing and yummy.
Yeah, talk about the Pintos bar, and I don't know if I pronounced that one right.
Oh, pinchos?
Pinchos.
Yeah, I
You
talked a
talked
lot about
that-
pinchos in my first Basque.
Yeah, but
article.
just for people to know that are listening for the first time, because these are like little mini appetizer-y kind of deals.
They are. They're sort of the Basque version of tapas, but with tapas you usually get a pretty decent serving, and you'll get several different tapas, and you'll all sit around at the table and all have a little bit of it. You know, you share them. With pinchos, they're individual and mostly based on a slice of bread or toast, and then topped with just about everything you can imagine, but with a big emphasis on things like peppers and seafood and the wonderful hams that they have there. And pinchos are so popular, they're just a great little snack during the day, or with a drink in the evening before you go off to dinner. And when you go to the Basque Country, if you're in Bilbao or San Sebastian or any town really, you can walk down the street and you'll look in these bars and you'll see the whole counter is just covered with these beautiful displays of these little tasty ensembles on toast. And you just go in and order some beer or wine, a little glass of wine or some cider, and just choose your pinchos. And you know, you don't sit down usually and make a meal of it. Usually you'll just have 1 or perhaps 2 and a little glass of wine, and then off you go, maybe to another pinchos bar or off for a meal.
And now, do you get olive tapenade with this? Because I know you were talking about olive oil is also a big deal where you were.
I didn't see much tapenade. I think that's more of a real Mediterranean thing. You see that, of course, all over the place in the south of France. But more just whole olives and lots of olive oil. Yeah, and it is a really a mainstay of the cuisine, because it's kind of interesting, you know, when you're in the northern part of the Basque Country, naturally because you're on the sea, there's a lot of emphasis on seafood, and not so much, you see olive oil, but it really, really is in the forefront in the cuisine when you go over the Cantabrian Mountains and into the Rioja Valley. It's sort of where the Basque Country meets a little bit of Mediterranean cuisine influence, a bit more. And the olives, of course, the trees were brought by the Romans, who also brought a lot of the grape varieties. And the olive oil is now something that they're really resurrecting. They even have a type of tree that they use. And of course, the name totally escapes me right now, but it's kind of like their own type of tree. And it's very short and stocky compared to the olive trees you see, say, in Italy or in the French southern part of France. And it withstands the cooler temperatures that they get during the winter. And it makes absolutely fantastic olive oil.
Oh, cool. Man. So this is
and
one
going
of the
olive
things
oil
to do.
tasting is really fun.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. It's like when you're in wine country, go olive oil tasting, and you start to, and it really goes back to the soil, which I think is super cool. It goes back to the soil, like you were saying, also the landscape, the terrain, and here's all this wine. When you went to this region, where did you stay? Is there an airport nearby? What's the, for someone just tuning in, hearing like, okay, well, How do you get there?
Well, the way I got there was I flew into Bilbao, which is the closest main international airport. And you can take in, they have a really, really good bus system in Catalonia and actually in all of Spain. And they're very comfortable. They're very economical. They try, you can get buses all the time. So you can do this trip by bus. I did it because I was part of a group on this trip associated with the International Wine Tourism Conference. But definitely, or you can rent a car. And it's about the one town I speak of, which is the capital of the Basque Country, called Vitoria-Gasteiz. That is about an hour and 15 minutes maximum south of Bilbao. And then to get from Vitoria-Gasteiz to LaGuardia, which is the village where I stayed for a couple of nights, and makes a really good base because it's kind of right in the middle of the Rioja Alavesa wine region, and it's really close and easy to get to everything. That's about another hour, maybe 15 minutes tops.
Oh, well, that's easy.
Yeah,
That's easy.
it's really all very close together.
And what about
That's
where you
nice.
stayed? Yeah, Nancy. I mean, Nancy, can't we expand our tour to go to
Well,
the Basque Country?
since it's a permanent tour, I would say yeah.
Yeah, I think we
Go
need
for
to do
it.
that.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean but there's green area around there. That's the one thing that I took away from your article, is that you have urban, but you have green right
Oh,
there.
yeah, actually, Vitoria-Gasteiz, and it has this dual name because Vitoria is the Spanish name and Gasteiz is the Basque name. And you'll see that with some towns in the region where they use both names from both languages. It was the European Green City, I think, in 2012. I mean, everybody, it's on this plain, so it's easy for the town to expand from its original medieval roots. And as it's expanded over the years, geographically, they have maintained all these beautiful parks and bicycle paths and walking trails, and everybody's always, it doesn't matter whether you live in a big apartment tower out on the outskirts of Vitoria, you still have green space. You don't have to go far to walk your dog or play with your kids, or just go for a walk and breathe some clean air. Everything is really close together in that respect. It's
that's why they all live longer than Americans.
yeah,
It's true.
and good public transportation too.
And a slow food
nice.
movement. You were talking about the one restaurant, Asador restaurant. You talked about it being slow food movement approved.
Oh,
the first
yes.
0-kilometer dining establishment. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah, the 0-kilometer food movement I think is pretty cool. It's the idea, I think, that everything is that they use, or at least 40% of the ingredients they use have to come from within something like 40 kilometers or 100 kilometers from there. And the Villa Lucia, I think, is the place, the Asador restaurant. It's at this wonderful center called the Villa Lucia Wine Thematic Center. It sounds better in Spanish, but that's the English translation. And they are slow food movement approved. And I saw the other day too, they have, we were talking about pinchos, and they have all these different pinchos competitions throughout Basque Country. And there was one that they entered, and I think they are now representing their region. And it's all pinchos that are made only with foods that were available in the area pre the era of conquest. So before the Spanish explorers came to the New World and came back with things like potatoes and tomatoes and cocoa and all these different things that we had over on this side of the pond, and they have to use only those ingredients. And I thought, oh my God, I bet they did a great job. I want to go back to see what they whipped up.
So, Hillary, tell us a little bit about the places you stayed. I mean, you've got wine country, you've got walled cities, you've got like green spaces, slow food movement. This is like an awesome, awesome destination. But what
And
about
lots of
staying?
wine. Don't forget the
Oh,
wine.
oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That's the first thing on the list. That's like a given. Tempranillo, let's go. But yeah, where did you stay?
Well, I stayed in Vitoria-Gasteiz, and that was for the conference. And it was a really nice hotel. There's a chain in Europe called the NH Hotels, and they have one that's right across from this beautiful park. It's one of the main central parks called Park Florida, and it is dates back to I think around 1820s, 1850s. It's got things like beautiful old bandstands and meticulous groomed flower beds and
Oh,
communal
cool.
gardens.
Nice.
And it's absolutely beautiful and really close to everything, close to the old quarter of Vitoria, and just super nice accommodation and great breakfast. They even have their own in-house baker.
Ooh.
And you know
Oh,
how the Spanish, they're like the French. They like those nice little,
Mm.
pastries for
mm,
breakfast. And of course, in Spain, they serve cookies at breakfast. So I
I'm
was
in.
in total heaven.
I'm in.
Mm.
And what's the
Yeah.
coffee like?
Coffee's really good. Coffee's
Oh,
excellent. Yeah. If you
Mm.
like your coffee, I drink my coffee black.
yeah, me
Mm.
too.
I
Yeah.
love it because it's really nice and strong and flavorful and
Oh,
smooth and not bitter or wimpy.
oh, I like a good coffee. Totally like that way. Like now I'm like, I want coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wine time over here, but now I want coffee. I love good coffee is like a
How
special,
about
special.
how about like a coffee flavored liqueur? Mm.
Oh, well,
Mm.
actually, you can get those. I had some of those up in Whidbey Island. I mentioned that, I think, in
Oh,
my Whidbey.
cool.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. This is so cool. Now, you do talk about in your article bodega. You talk
Mhm,
about the bodegas. Now,
mhm.
see, the bodega to us is this little grocery store where we are in Yuma, Arizona, right up this, like a few
Oh,
steps from the hotel, the Coronado Hotel. You've been here, and
I certainly
the
have.
bodega is it's a Mexican market. It's a bodega, and we call it the bodega, but like the bodega over there, it's going to be a little different than the market we're going to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. When you see the name of bodega before the name of a winery, it's sort of like saying, chateau or domaine in France, or it indicates that it's a winery.
Yeah, see, now
Well,
I like
that's
that
it's
bodega.
close. It's close because when we say bodega, we sit and watch people.
We watch them drive around. It's really funny. We just, it's how the backing and everything. No, just parking lots are really, it's like people watching in an
Oh, I
interesting
would
way.
think so.
It's
Mm.
interesting, but I didn't know that, the winery part, it's interesting too. So the lodging, because you've got LaGuardia that you stayed in,
Oh, that was great.
and you also talk about a place that you in the vineyards. I mean, this is amazing. You could go
Oh
stay in the
yeah, they have a
vineyards.
whole variety of accommodations in that part of Basque Country, and where I stayed was, as I mentioned earlier, right inside the walled city of LaGuardia, and it was called the. I'll probably mispronounce the name, but it's the Hospederia de los Parajas, and it's very small. I think they have only about 18 rooms. Every room is different, and it's built in this old, I'm sure it was probably originally a large house at one time. And it's right on the main square. It's with the Plaza Mayor, which is where the town hall is. And when you come through the main gate, through the wall, you enter this square, and it's right at the end.
Cool.
And I had this absolutely beautiful room with this huge, I mean, huge soaker spa bathtub. And it had this hand tiled mosaic of Bacchus, the wine god.
Oh, cool.
Everything's wine. Beautiful, cozy, comfy bed, really well appointed room. And it had this two little Juliet balconies with these big glass doors that opened up onto them, and they looked out over the square.
Cool.
So
Oh,
yeah, it was like dreamy.
That's nice.
oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I
And
felt like a princess.
Mm.
now, is it true that the wineries, like when you're walking the streets, like there's the cobblestone streets, which to me, I have a thing about that. I love old streets. Cobblestone, I like dirt roads, and I love old brick streets too, like what you see in
Oh, yeah.
Louisiana, right? Those are special. Um, but is it true that some of the wine is stored under the roads, or was at one point stored under
Oh,
the roads?
definitely. It still is. LaGuardia is located near the borders of two ancient countries, for lack of a better word, Navarre and Castile. And they were always fighting over land and rivers and, the things that medieval cultures used to fight over.
Wow.
And so whenever LaGuardia was in the midst, physically in the midst of one of these battles, they would, for security, they built these tunnels and these caverns underneath their houses. And they started to connect them. So there was actually a maze of streets and little caverns and cellars all underneath the city. So it was like a duplicate subterranean LaGuardia. And they would move their shops down there and their businesses. And actually, when it was really, really hot there earlier this summer, and I was speaking to someone who works for the tourism, the wine route of Rioja Alavesa, and she said it was so hot that they moved their offices down into the cellar.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah. I don't know how well the Wi-Fi works down there, but they were a lot cooler because these old places, they don't have air conditioning or anything like that. So yeah, it was a whole separate duplicate town underneath the streets. And now, though, because of the structure and the weight, that's one reason they don't allow cars in the city, because the weight is too much. They've closed off a lot of the interconnecting tunnels, but the caverns are still there and the cellars. And people use the cellars for storage and to keep their foods and their wine. And one of the wineries that I visited, Casa Primicia, which is actually the oldest continuously working winery in all of Spain. And it's right inside the city. And we went down into their subterranean cellars, and it was fascinating.
You know what's interesting
Cool.
is, like they always say, like the apocalypse, if it happens, we're all going to be living
They're prepared.
we're going to be under the underground. And I'm like, dude, I'm so going there. I'm going to LaGuardia. I want to go sit with the wine. Put me with the wine. No, my days out that way. Thank you very much. Now, what about getting around and speaking with the locals? Do people speak English there? I always want to bring up that kind of thing because, we should travel the world even, when none of us can communicate, there's ways. So we should still do it, Don't let that, stop you from traveling.
Yeah. You'll find Spanish is, if you speak Spanish, you'll have no problem. I just really speak English, and I had no problem either. Most people are they are so extremely friendly, and they want to be helpful, and they will do as you say, their best to communicate. And when in doubt, I'm not plugging anything, but I do rely sometimes on things like Google Translate, or an audio translator. So instead of typing things in, I can take a picture of it and have it translated, or say something in English, and the system will translate it into Spanish for me. And then, you're good to go.
Or it's funny. And when it comes out different, it's funny.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it's like when we take our GPS, our Garmin GPS, and we plug it in, and you have them say that, street names in France in their sort of odd translation. It's quite humorous.
Oh my gosh. I don't use GPS because the last time I tried to do any of that, I ended up in a cabbage patch.
Well, that happens sometimes too, but most of the time
I know, but
it's
it's funny. And one of our friends was trying to get a hold of us. We're off traipsing around the countryside, how we are. And she's like, I can't get hold of you. I've been calling this, calling that. I'm like, well, we're in the middle of a cabbage patch.
and it's
And
fun.
I'm like, really? Let me take a picture. We're in a cabbage patch. We're lost. We're on our way to the Cocoa Paw Museum, a fry bread making demonstration, and we're in a cabbage patch. How does that happen? I don't know, but it's really cool. I love this whole area. To me, just sounds like, Nancy, I think, don't you feel like it seems just like beautiful, relaxing, good
I,
wine, good
I
food?
like things that are preserved and old, like they keep their character.
Oh yeah.
And that's what Europe and parts of Africa and other countries offer. Not saying this country doesn't, but it's easier to find in other places sometimes,
Mhm.
because we're all about being modern and new and tear it down. And sometimes I feel, yeah, I want to preserve a lot of that historic old look, that it's comfortable, it's cozy, I see beauty and curvy and not all straight corners kind of thing.
Yeah, it's nice to look at down a street and think about who's walked down there before you,
Oh
and
yeah.
what were
Yeah.
they doing, and what were they wearing, and what was happening in their world. And yeah, it is. And when you stay in these older hotels and things, and you just wake
Yeah.
up in the morning and you go, oh, it's like the walls are talking to me.
Yeah. It's like not everything is like based on how much money can we make. It's about, hey, there's a tree there, so let's curve around it instead of tearing it down and making it straight arrow.
Yeah.
That's the difference that I always feel. And so when you go to Europe and you go to other places that have preserved that, I always really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, and bringing that up, you also talk about the Drink Between the Lines project that you're this whole
I drink
winery.
between every line.
I
Yeah.
know, but this whole winery that you can pronounce instead of me, because you were there, you're going to do better than me. But there's this winery that that has got some literary history, and it's something that Nancy and I care deeply
Mm.
about as we travel. We on our Love Your Parks tour across the country, we've been assigned different writing assignments from different people.
Mm.
And one, our JKS Communications, they're literary publicists, and they send us one on, we want literary stories. And I swear to God, we would never have picked up on all these stories had
Oh
they not
yeah.
sent us on this. And it's like, here's a statue of a writer that was here. Hemingway was here. Oh, excuse me, we have John Steinbeck over here.
Yeah.
No,
And
there's
James, don't
Michener.
forget
Who
James
knew?
Michener.
In the corner of Northeast Colorado, here's James Michener, where he wrote Centennial and taught. And you're ending up in the university looking at all of his letters and stuff. You're like, no, like the dude is like one of the best on the planet, Michener. And so you start to have all these different connections when you think outside of the typical travel box. And reading your article on this one too, just really kind of put me in our place of what we do as we travel too, is where it's about who's been there, what was, artists and writers and musicians. I know you're a big music person like we are too, and you these places inspire the arts.
Oh, definitely. And the arts in turn inspire these wineries and restaurants and others too. There were definitely, I know the place that you are thinking of is called Bodegas Solar de Samaniego.
Oh, you go,
And
girl.
Good for
it's
you.
easier to say when you've had a few sips of Tempranillo.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it's not very far from LaGuardia, and it was quite a big winery that was built back in the 1970s. So kind of one of those industrial, concrete-y type buildings. And when I went to visit, they were just getting ready to reopen, and they had sort of reinvented their wine experience for their visitor, again based on that sort of the project called Drink Between the Lines. And they have the literary history is that their family has been around since the 18th century, the owners of the winery. And their estate was apparently where a lot of these very famous Basque fables and stories were focused. And the writer, his name is Felix Maria de Samaniego. And actually that house, the estate, is now where that wonderful restaurant is, the slow food restaurant, the Villa
Oh,
Lucia.
yeah.
that is their home, is the Samaniego estate. So these places are, it's a small town. They're all tied together, a lot of them in one way or another. But what they've done is they've taken this one room, you go in and it looks like a beautiful old comfy library, and with the books and the wine bottles on the shelves. And that's where you are introduced to the wines. And then you can go on the tour, and the culmination, they have this fabulous thing, and you can go, and it's in the evening, and you can go and taste the wine and have a tour of the winery, and it ends just outside. And it's this area where they had these huge concrete tanks that were part of the old winery, and they're just gymongous, and they were going to tear them down, but a muralist named Guido van Helten took on the project, and he has turned these big industrial concrete tanks into these incredible murals that depict the story of wine, tying it into how words and wine go together.
Wow.
And there are paintings of the winemaker, the grower, the family,
Cool.
the people who work in the vineyards, the sommelier who reads the label and relates what's in the bottle to their guest. And it's like the whole circuit of wine, and it's done with lights and music and this beautiful audio presentation. They're really into this kind of thing over there, and they do it so well. And it's just a wonderful experience.
Wow.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
like it.
We
really
do need
like
to
that.
put this on our tour, Nancy. Totally.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
and when you talk too about literature in this area, going back to Vitoria-Gasteiz, there's a fantastic, and I talk about it in my article, the old cathedral of Santa Maria that is now being renovated. It's definitely a continuing work in progress. But Ken Follett loved that area, and he said that cathedral was one of the 3 greatest cathedrals in the world.
see,
And he apparently used part of that cathedral in his mind when he wrote Pillars of the Earth.
Wow.
So yeah, there's all these really
ties.
cool little connections.
I love that. That's
Awesome.
the thing about travel. You realize you're more connected when you travel than when you're not. You don't realize. I mean, TV and stuff. Yeah, you know what? TV's great because you can watch our YouTube videos there, everybody.
And they're so good.
I know, and
So much fun.
They are.
you can see that. And but other than that, no, I'm kidding. TVs, you've got things. I'm not going to knock anything, but there's something about getting out there and having your foot in the dirt and actually experiencing these places. And you continue to inspire us. Going over to Barcelona. You've been all over Catalonia and south of France and the Basque Country. I keep wanting to say Barcelona all the time. Every time, it's Basque, Barcelona, and it's 2 different places, right?
Very.
Very. I'll get in trouble just now. We do not need to have a revolution. But and you're off to England next, right?
Yes.
Oh, can't wait. I cannot wait. My gosh.
England and the Campania region of Italy.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Excuse us, Wine Queen. Everybody, keep up with Wine Queen, Hilarie Larson's adventures. You can find her on blendradioandtv.com. You'll see her in our expert department, and also on nationalparktraveling.com. Both of those websites are base for our magazines, Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, as well as our Parks and Travel magazine, which is on nationalparktraveling.com. But you can also keep up with Hilarie at northwindswineconsulting.com. So you'll also find her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And very excited to have this next article up in the December issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. We always love to close with some music, especially with Hilarie. She's a music fan for sure. But the first time you came on the show talking about the Basque Country, we played a song from Domingo de Grazia, who's the son of the famed Arizona artist Ted de Grazia. And because he plays flamenco guitar and all that, it just feels right.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I remember.
This one is from the same album, which is Please Remember Me, where they recreated the music of Ted de Grazia, the artist. They found his manuscripts of his music. And this one is called Strolling and Singing. And I feel like that goes,
Mm.
it just, I want to go stroll through the vineyards and sing and drink wine. You
That's
know,
what life's all about, isn't it?
heck
Well, it
yes.
should be if it isn't.
Heck yeah.
Come
But
on.
thank you so much for joining us, everyone. You can keep up with that album, by the way. Please remember me, go to degrazia.org. We're going to be, our shows air now on Big Blend Radio. Go to bigblendradio.com. We air every day except for Saturdays. So check it out. The schedule's up there. Best thing to do is sign up for our weekly newsletter. You'll either get a magazine in your email box or you'll get the latest articles, recipes, interviews, but always a radio show schedule. So keep up with us there. Thank you so much, Hilarie. It's always a pleasure, Wine Queen.
Oh, thank you. It's been great. And I'll see you down the road. And I want to hear about all your adventures too.
You too.